So Chapter 9, Two-Sample Inference. So in Chapter 7, we discussed methods of hypothesis testing. About one population parameter. So we did hypothesis testing for mu when we had quantitative data and for p when we had qualitative data. And then in Chapter 8, we discussed methods of estimating population parameters from one sample again using confidence intervals. So again, we did a confidence interval for mu and a confidence interval for p. So this chapter, we're basically going to repeat everything we did in chapters 7 and 8 now for two groups instead of one. So this chapter will look at methods of confidence intervals and hypothesis testing for two populations. So since there are two populations, there will be two corresponding random variables, so two means or proportions, and then two samples. Though with something called paired samples, that we're going to see what that is in a second, we usually consider there to be one sample with pairs collected. So some examples of where you would do this are the following. So testing and estimating the difference in testosterone levels of men before and after they've had children. Testing the claim that a diet works by looking at the weight before and after subjects are on a diet, or estimating the difference in proportion of those who approved of President Obama in the age group 18 to 26-year-olds and comparing that to the 55 and over age group. So all of these are examples of hypothesis tests or confidence intervals for two populations. So the methods to conduct these hypothesis tests and confidence intervals will be explored in this chapter. As a reminder, all hypothesis tests are going to use the same process. So we're still going to be walking through those same 8 steps phantoms. We're just going to have, a different formula and some different looking things with parameters since we're going to have two populations in there now instead of just one. And for confidence intervals, again, we're still going to use the acronym PANIC to remember the 5 steps there. All right, so below is a flowchart of where we have been in chapters 7 and 8 and where we're going to in chapter 9. So as you can see below, the first most important question to ask is if quantitative or qualitative information has been collected on each individual object. So that's why every homework set you have to identify the object, figure out what the variable is, and then classify it as quantitative or qualitative. So some of these tests we've already done. So t-test and t-interval we have already done, and one prop z-test and one prop z-interval. So these we've done in the previous chapters. So when we had quantitative data and we had just one sample, we could do a t-test if we wanted a hypothesis test and a t-interval if we wanted a confidence interval for mu. And when we had qualitative data and we took one sample, we looked at one prop z-test and one prop z-interval, again depending if we wanted to test a hypothesis or compute a confidence interval for p. So the new ones in this section are here. So these are our new ones. So two sample t-test and two sample t-interval, paired t-test and paired t-interval, and the two prop z-test and two prop z-interval. And we can see after we've been asked about quantitative and qualitative, the next question is asked is whether we have one or two samples. But now in the case where we have two samples, we have another question that we didn't have to ask ourselves when we only had one. And that is, are those two samples independent or paired? So that will be a new concept in this particular unit that we will get to in a later section.